It's been a year since the release of Diablo 4. A weird game for me. It dropped at a time where Destiny was in a bad spot and it arrived as this new, live service looter that seemed like the right opportunity at the right time. I was ready for something new. Despite being blown away by the presentation of the game's main campaign and enjoying my Necromancer build and having a generally good time, I was lukewarm on the idea of seasonal characters, the idea that once the season was over, they'd be banished to the Eternal Realm and essentially rendered useless for the next season. So, when the disaster that struck with Season 1 hit, Blizzard, unable to read the room and nerfed everything and everyone into the ground, I immediately fell off. So, 4 seasons on, 1 year later, I returned to Diablo 4 to see where it's at ahead of the game's new expansion that's dropping later this year called Vessel of Hatred. It comes at a similar time of uncertainty in the Destiny community. The question is, does Diablo 4 do it for me now? Well, yes and no, but mostly yes. Diablo 4 is a marked improvement from what I played at launch and in its first season. From the rollout of loot, the activities present in the game, the speedier and easier and more streamlined progression, and a major respect for a player's time. Diablo 4 1 year later is a fantastic time. Let's start with the seasons. Since outside of expansions, this is the bulk of Diablo's content. The premise is that each season you will create a new character for that season. What this allows is that one season you might fuck around with a Necromancer, the following season you might fuck around with a Sorcerer, and it really does push experimentation in all the different character classes. And I do like that about it. In comparison to something like a Destiny or even a Division, where you'll spend the majority of your time as one sole class as an average player. For me, it still works both for it and against it, in that I love the fact that it is really pushing me to try a different character for each of the different seasons. But at the same time, unless you're big into Diablo or this particular kind of ARPG, I'm not sure I'd want to play every single season. And as a result of that, I'd like to sometimes just carry my character over just to fuck around in a new season for a little bit and not do the whole leveling process once again. I think what's been so refreshing about coming back is that I haven't played in a year, so everything felt fresh and fantastic in that. The activities were fun and engaging, leveling up felt purposeful, and overall it was just a good time. But then, let's pretend that the expansion wasn't after this season, and it was just straight into a new season. I'm not sure I'd feel quite the same way. But this more so lends me into my next point. The delivery of these seasons are very well done. All of the content that is playable is free. You do not need to buy these seasons. There's no groundbreaking story, and it's definitely not got the narrative presentation of the main campaign. It just acts as a nice through line to get you to the new systems, activities, or the brand spanking shiny new loot. With these seasons, I have to praise the respectability of a player's time. I completed the battle pass inside a week, and you might be like, go and touch some fucking grass, mate. But I don't even feel like I was proper hardcore with it. The leveling from 0 to 100 is so much better. Diablo is a collection of dopamine hits, right? And the seasons really doubled down on that. The speedier progression of leveling, even when I wasn't trying to be optimal with it, the small amount of time required to beat the battle pass, the fact that the main content that is playable is free, and the way you are showered in loot from moment one, it is massive, massive improvements. There's no time gating on quests or loot or progression or weekly challenges. It's all there, day one, minute one. I think these seasons are extremely casual friendly, that anyone could just jump in and have fun. But it's also fantastic and meaningful for those who are more hardcore with it. So on the casual front, let's say season 6, I don't get the itch till maybe halfway through the season or the last few weeks. It's not a challenge to get through that season's content or battle pass in the remaining time that's left, unlike it would be in other games. There's no benefit to waiting for the last couple of weeks in the same way that there's no benefit to being in there moment one. In a world where live service games want you playing every minute of every day and gating progression in weekly challenges or time gated quests, Diablo 4 deserves its flowers for being so player friendly. I played for just over a week, and I feel accomplished with what I played. There's tons more that I could do if I really wanted to, and as a result, I've barely scratched the true end game. But that doesn't matter, because I had a fantastic time doing so, and I feel full off the experience I got. Something that I've been trying to speak into existence recently is the re-emergence of Marvel Heroes, or a DC equivalent of that, to give me that ARPG power fantasy of superheroes. One of the greatest strides that Diablo has made since launch is that feeling of granting you that power fantasy that this game first promised. I felt around the launch period, you could feel powerful, but not that true power fantasy. Like, it never felt like you were decimating all of those around you, and sometimes in just a couple of hits, you'd be wiped out. This season, I rolled a sorcerer, and as a class that operates with a lower health pool, they nailed it, man. The enemy density in this season's activity is crazy, and it goes back to what I say, Diablo is just pure dopamine hits. Pair that with the quicker leveling, and you feel so much stronger, so much earlier, but because of the revamped loot system, way more powerful too. And that revamped loot system is one of the bigger changes too. The game is so much more generous, not just in the amount of loot that you get, but the rarity and the perks and the power of it. So I was rocking this Incinerate Saucer build, right? Just human torching my way through dungeons and activities. And then I got this unique that meant fireballs would bounce if it hit enemies a few times. So I switched it up and built my build around fireballs for a little bit. But I wasn't quite feeling it as I got into the higher tiers and more difficult activities, so I switched it back. Later on, I got this second unique, which meant that every third cast of fireballs would send out an additional 2 projectiles. So then I paired these two together. Oh my god. And then I also added a legendary imprint that increased the crit damage of fireballs. All of a sudden, I'm just getting about these activities with pure ease, and fireballs are just bouncing around everywhere, enemies are being decimated before they even spawn, and then I pair this with a unique that I got later on that grants meteors extra hits too, and all of a sudden, it is just raining firebollox everywhere. And it's so sick and satisfying. And I just absolutely adore the way in that one piece of loot can change your entire build and the entire way you think about it. That comes alongside the fact that they've made build crafting so forgiving in that you don't need to spend everything to respec, and the build crafting itself just synergizes so beautifully with so many options. I'm not going to give you the rundown of every system change since launch, since there's a ton of better Diablo YouTubers more equipped to do so, but the way you can masterwork to improve stats, reroll any stats that you don't like on legendaries, imprint aspects onto gear pieces like gaining thorns when channeling, improving crit damage when doing certain skills, dodges, all that jazz. It all focuses on player first in terms of low respec costs, showering of all the different loot, and the ability to salvage that loot. Therefore, then being able to imprint that perk onto another gear piece with more favourable stats towards your build. It's all just top stuff. One of the final points that I want to make is to talk about the game's activities. Outside of the main story, side quests and activities were just not great when I first played. Oh no, my son's gone missing. Well, guess what? He's probably dead, I can't lie. Then you get there and he's strapped to some cross and he turns into a demon and you get like 3,000 coins for finishing that side quest. Flash forward to now, and these last two seasonal activities are both present in Season 5. Helltide, which was Season 4's activity, and now Infernal Hordes, which is this season's main activity. They are a great time, because the game has done that great job that I spoke about in terms of granting that power fantasy, without making everything really easy. It means, in doing so, they can crank up the enemy density. So you'll have a shitload of monsters on screen at any point. But then, like I say, you find this beautiful build, and you just watch the monsters crumble around you. But there's depth to all of these activities. There's tiers that I only got up to tier 3, and there was like 8, I believe. So you can just keep going and going if you truly want to do so. Like I say, I'm good now. I really had my fun, and if I didn't have a ton of other games that I wanted to play and jump into, I would definitely keep continuing. But for those who do, there's activities at level 100 that I didn't even touch, that I didn't even complete. Of course, there's still the world bosses to take on with other people, the Legion events, and then the progress that you make in Helltide in raising hell, essentially. It's that simple. It goes back to what I was saying before. it lends itself beautifully to the casual audience in that maybe just want to play for a few hours, play a bit each week, or dive in every other season. It's really welcoming in all of that. Let's say you love Hell, Diablo, Mephisto. You want to spend tens or hundreds of hours exploring Sanctuary in its depth. There's absolutely an audience, and Blizzard cater for that too. And that is one of the hardest jobs of a live service game. Blizzard have found the fun here. Like I say, the seasonal character thing, I don't think it's quite for me, but because it respects players' time, I could see myself casually dipping in every season just to see what it's about, or playing every other season and seeing what's new. And the game still has these gorgeous environments in the most sick and twisted way. Of course, it's still got the pretty shit microtransactions despite how fantastic they look, but I also found myself getting a pretty decent amount of cosmetics that I could salvage and apply to my character free of charge too. That's not to defend the high prices, just to say it's not the worst thing in the world. Overall, Diablo 4 is just remarkably better 1 year later. If you're coming back for the iconic Blizzard cutscenes and presentation, you still need to hold off for the expansion. And if you're a narrative heavy player who relies on strong storytelling in its seasons, this isn't what you're looking for. But if you're after a looter that respects your time, you want to just chill, listen to music, or put a podcast on, want to receive nothing but dopamine hits, or you just want to decimate the demons of hell, or create a load of different builds, I recommend Diablo 4 1 year later. But that's just my thoughts on Diablo 4. I want to know, have you played since launch? Did you ever leave? Or have you even played Diablo 4? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments. Dropping a like on the video really does help me out, and I just love talking about the things in games that I'm just really feeling, you know? So dropping a like would really support me and help me do that. And hey, if you're after more of that and you enjoy what I do here, consider subscribing. All my socials are linked in the description down below. And other than that, I just hope you have a terrific day. Look after yourself, and I'll catch you in the next one.